And let me go here to presentation. Just gonna minimize this. Okay, so this is what I wanted to talk about today. The name of the presentation is the essential skills of a Simpet consultant. And this is a summary of what we're going to be looking at today. This is not a technical learning session. And I hope you guys don't get bored because of this. I'm going to try to make it as dynamic as possible. Just, you know, to take a look at the summary, we're going to have the goals of the learning session. Then what that, you know, a definition of what means to be, what it means to be a consultant. And then the 4 essential non-technical skills of a successful consultant, which this is something that I came up with based on experience. And if you look online, you will find a lot of different takes on, you know, what it takes to be a consultant and the skills that you need to have. I think these 4 skills are you know, they encompass everything that we need to be, and it's a list of bases. So you guys can get started and then build from there. The first one is effective communication. Next one is resourcefulness, commitment, and accountability. We're going to take a look at each one of them, and then we're going to have a few conclusions and questions and answers. If there's anything to discuss, I'll be glad to do it after, you know, we've finished the conversation. Let's get started. This is the introduction. I'm just gonna set the goal for the session. The first goal is to provide a team with information that allows you guys to perform a self-assessment of your personal and professional competencies and identify a path for improvement. So you'll look at this and you can you know, do like a retrospective session. Think about what you think are your areas to be improved. One thing that I learned many years ago is that from a boss of mine that I used to have, he said, work on the areas that you think you're good and make, you know, and be better. And the ones that you think you're not so good at them, try to compensate with other things, right? So I think that's something that we should be doing. The other goal is to share the knowledge that I've acquired throughout my consulting career as a way to reinforce these concepts for myself and organize them in a way that they also become meaningful for my colleagues. I think of this like when you're in college, right? And the teacher makes you go in front of the class and give a lesson. You're not an expert, right? You're learning along with your classmates, but still you do it because it's a good experience for you and for your colleagues, and I think it's a great way to also, you know, become more knowledgeable about things. So think of I think of this as something like that. Let me go to, you know, the next one, which is what is a consultant. And when I was you know, doing this, I thought of you remember that episode of The Simpsons when Homer is looking at a book of you know, on advanced marketing. He's looking at you know, at first of the advanced book, and then he just doesn't understand a thing. He goes to the beginning, and then he goes to the dictionary, right? So I think that's where I'm gonna get started, because that's exactly what happened to me when I was doing this presentation. Like I wanted to talk about like very high end concepts, and then I ended up thinking I need to start from the beginning, kind of define what is a consultant, right? So I found a few definitions, and I found 3 that I thought they were interesting. The first one is a consultant is a person who provides expert advice professionally. That is not wrong, but I think it's lacking. It falls short, and I will tell you in a minute why I think that. The next one is kind of a funny one. It's a joke. It's someone who takes the watch off your wrist and tells you the time. And there are also reasons why people joke with this. You know, we'll look at them in a minute. The third one is the one that I like the most, and I think that we should be looking at how to be a better consultant based on this definition of a consultant. It's a professional using their knowledge, experience, analytical, and/or problem-solving skills to add value into a wide variety of organizations through improved performance. This is achieved by providing objective advice and implementing business solutions. So going back to the first one, that's not enough because providing expert advice, that's not everything that we do. We have to go beyond that, right? And that's what we're gonna discuss in a few minutes as well. Also, a consultant is not always an expert. It's ideal, but sometimes this from a technical perspective, you don't have to be an expert in something to provide meaningful advice to a business on how to implement best practices. And then the second one is a misconception, that the consultant is entirely a professional who provides advice, right? It's like taking the watch off their wrist and just tell them the time. That's pretty much it. The number 3 is the one that encompasses what we're going to look in this presentation. Hard skills, which is knowledge and experience, but also the soft skills, the ones that we looked at initially: effective communication, resourcefulness, commitment, and accountability. So I like this one, and we're going to go with the third one from now on. So let's get started. Let's take a look at the essential non-technical skills of a Simpet consultant. And the first one that I have here is effective communication. Let's take a look. I gathered some quotes, and a quote for each one of the skills. This one says, your ability to communicate with others will account for fully 85% of your success in your business and in your life. So think about that for a moment. It's 85%. That's a lot. And I truly believe this. I think that the ability to communicate with others is crucial in your success. That doesn't matter what you do for a living. It really doesn't matter. And it's so lacking if we think about our lives, in general, when we go and interact with other people, that at least in Mexico, I don't know in other places, but you go to a business and you always find people that are like really bad at communicating, right? That's pretty sad that people don't invest time in improving their soft skills. Communication is really essential. That's why I started with this one first. The definition of effective communication in simple words. It is the presentation of views and ideas by the sender in a way that is best understood by the receiver. So this is a pretty straightforward definition. This presentation of views can occur either verbally or written, as well as either one-to-one or one-to-many. And effective communication, I think it's an art as well as a skill that you can develop after continuous practice and experience. That's something just, some people are better at it, but you still have to develop that. So let's take a look at some tips to improve your effective communication as a sender, right? As the person that is delivering the message. The first one is you have to make sure that your message meets the 4 C's. This is something that I came up with. This clear, correct, complete, and concise. And I think this is very, very, very straightforward. No need to go further into this, but clear, that is easy for the receiver to understand the message. Correct, that what you're saying is accurate. Complete, that you're giving the full message, and concise, that you're not taking a lot of time into conveying this message. That's important. That of all these 4, I think the 4th one is the one that I struggle the most with. It's difficult for me to convey a message in just a few words. I always struggle when I'm doing it in verbal. It's more painful. When I'm doing it in writing, I end up writing a lot of words, but I still have the time at least to go back and cut some words. When you're talking, you don't really have that option. The next one, be mindful of your recipient. Always choose the best physical or virtual setting for your conversation, and always take in consideration the personal and professional background of the recipient. You don't talk, you know, you can't really talk to everyone about everything. You have to take in consideration the person you're talking to, even the culture that they come from. Sometimes that's important. That's something to consider, and also the title maybe that they have. Like I can't talk about billable hours and stuff like that to someone in global research, for example, that it's not on a management level, right? And also the setting, the physical or virtual setting. You know, find the right time to convey the message. I'm not going to talk about a deployment. If I'm on site, for example, and I come across John in the bathroom, I'm not going to tell him start talking about business in the bathroom, right? Unless they ask, but that will be something awkward. So always choose the best setting for that conversation to happen. The more tips on this: be reliable. And be reliable is going back to saying to be able to say to or to make sure that your message is correct, but also always feel comfortable that saying I don't know. And I think the more you know about things, the more you feel comfortable saying I don't know, right? I don't know. I'll get back to you on that one. And really, it's impressive the amount of respect that saying I don't know gets you sometimes. Um, so always feel comfortable, admitting that you don't know something, but you can always find out for your recipient. Work on expanding your vocabulary. Avoid commonplaces or these words like we say. I use one a lot, which is like, right, like this, like that. The other one that I see being used a lot is stuff. Like, well, this is easy stuff. This stuff or this stuff that we work with. Try to use technical terms. Try to use specific terms all the time, and always try to expand your vocabulary. The next one is politics are a powerful thing. I'm not talking about lying or making up things. But there are many ways to convey a message. Your obligation as a consultant is to find the best one. That's you have to be diplomatic. You have to find ways to give a message that is actually pleasant to, and it's not always easy. There are always ways. There are always times in which you will have to communicate bad news to people. That is okay. But just to give you an example, just a few months ago, there was this user at Global Resale. Her name is Lisa. And she's always, not very happy with the system, frustrated about things. I think she's overworked. Doesn't have a lot to do with us, but and John wanted me to go talk to her about something, and something that she wasn't able to do in grid. And I talked to her. I explained what she needed. She was up and running. And John comes to me later and he says, "Did you talk to Lisa? Was she satisfied with your solution?" And I kind of hesitated for a moment. I told him, I replied saying, "Well, I mean, she's got everything that she needs to do her job, right?" I avoided saying if she was satisfied or not because that wasn't. And John said like, "JC, that was a great answer to really not going into if she's satisfied or not, because that's not really the point right now." That's another thing that you have to understand what the answer they're looking for. You start talking about, well, she's frustrated because this, that, and I think that's really not adding any value at that point. He just wanted to know if she was up and running and if she was able to continue being productive. So focus on that part of the response instead of anything else. More an effective communication now as a recipient. Use active listening techniques, show interest, ask questions, avoid frequent interruptions, and understand the meaning of words. We're going back to the previous point. Make sure your body language show interest in what they're saying, and ask as many questions as you want, as you need, but be mindful of frequent interruption as well. Kind of, find a middle ground there. And listen between the lines also. Don't assume things as well. I know they're kind of like, if you think about it, they're probably contradicting concepts, but there are ways of finding a middle ground, and you have to skim through that through your conversations. The next one is you have the right to remain silent. If you're unsure of what to reply, you don't feel comfortable conceding to something, you can always acknowledge the reception of the message and promise to respond at a later time. So you probably need time to research. You don't feel comfortable committing to something, or maybe they're talking about something that is not constructive. Like it happens sometimes that they're bashing on another coworker, and you don't have anything to say, right? Like you just listen, and you have the right to remain silent. Just make sure, and then let's leverage into the next one, to acknowledge clearly and be empathetic. Use phrases like, I can see how that is a difficult thing to deal with. I can certainly help with that. I see your point. I appreciate you being honest with me. You're not compromising to anything, or you're not agreeing to what they're saying, right? Like if they're bashing someone else, well, I can see how that is a difficult situation to be in. But again, be empathetic all the time with customers. And this is important. You're going to see me going back to talking about how the customer is the most important part of our job. And I truly believe this. It's not I know it sounds like a cliche, but that's it. Like everything is centered in the customer, or the customer is the center of all this. So whenever possible, do a recap as well. Make sure you're in line with the sender, that you agree on what needs to be done. If you can take notes as well, and probably put it in written, that will be an added value. So let me move on. Does anyone have any questions? If I'm going too quick, let me know, or any observations that you may have, feel free. Let's see. What are the benefits of effective communication as a consultant? As you advance through your professional career, being able to clearly communicate your ideas to both team members and external parties becomes a larger part of someone's daily duties. So even if you consider yourself to be a technical resource, communication is a big part of your job, and it's going to be even bigger as you progress, on your professional career. Active listening is the greatest single source of information that you will ever have to resolve the most complex problem from your customers. But don't look at anywhere else. Don't be too hasty into like jumping into the problem and trying to fix it. Listen to the customer first. Like you might think that they're like talking a lot of stuff that is useless, but there might be, a pearl, like, something precious on all that stuff that they're talking. I remember this. I always think about this car mechanic that I used to go to, and I will go there and I will start talking about what happened to my car, and I will try to give him as many details as possible of what happened. And he was always like in a rush, like trying to shut me off. And yeah, I'm just gonna check it. It's probably this, and I'm just gonna take a look at it. I'll let you know. And most of the times he wasn't a very good car mechanic. And it will also upset me that he wasn't willing to listen to me. I was probably talking a lot of useless stuff. I will give him that. But there might be something, a clue, of what I'm saying, right? And he wasn't taking the time to listen to me. I switched car mechanics, and there's this new guy, and he's actually great. So I totally recommend him. That's a different conversation, but if you guys are interested, he's actually great. But take that in consideration as well. Your job becomes easier when you listen to the customer. Great communication skills and the right attitude can help you build long-lasting personal relationships with other people, even in a professional environment. This is a great way to attract more business to the company and success to your career. So I don't think I have to explain this one. This benefit is pretty straightforward. To think about that as well. These are the reasons why effective communication is a crucial skill for you to have. The next one The next skill is resourcefulness. So we took a look at effective communication. Now we're going to take a look at resourcefulness. Um, this is the quote that I chose for this one. Aerodynamically, the bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly, but the bumblebee doesn't know it, so it goes and fly anyway. And what does that have to do with resourcefulness? So let's take a look at the definition. Resourcefulness is the ability to find quick and clever ways to overcome difficulties. So you check the quote that I gave, right? That I gave earlier. This is about finding your way to your own way to succeed when others failed. So Simpet, take an example of Simpet. We're relatively a small company, right? A younger company than others, and maybe more limited resources. And when we took over the IBM integration, like I said before, there were, I think they had tried, IBM had tried this integration 3 times in the past with other clients and other, consultants, and it had always failed. And it didn't seem to, they didn't seem to have like a lot of hope on this one. And we were able to deliver, right? We delivered. And so you think about it, right? Going back to the bumblebee, Simpet, we didn't know that we weren't able to do it, right? Like no one told us that you can't do it, so we just went ahead and did it. That is resourcefulness. So if I was asked to give us a synonym for consultant, it will be problem solver for sure. And also be prepared for thinking of yourself as a resilience ninja, guru of adaptability, wizard of light bulb moments, solutions alchemist, and some other ridiculous made-up titles found on LinkedIn. This is obviously a joke, but think for a minute what they mean by those titles, right? I'm not saying this to go and change your title or your email signature to that. That's not a good stuff, not a good thing to do. But think about those titles for a minute and what they mean. That's what we should aim for. So how to be resourceful? First of all, be an advocate for the customer. You have to deliver a solution for the satisfaction of your stakeholders, not your own. Resourcefulness will only be good if it helps you meet your customer needs, not your own. It's important to consider before even talking about the other points. So be client, be customer centered. Something is not good enough just because you feel like it is, right? Think about those things. Creative thinking and complex solutions are not the same thing. Always try to come up with the path of resistance. Think of the agile, the agile philosophy, lean, avoiding waste, try to reduce waste. Try to think the shortest path from point A from point B. Sometimes the solution will be even non-technical. You have to consider that possibility as well. Next one is be all about calculated risks. Break down decisions into smaller and less daunting steps, like break them down and think of them individually. And you also assess the potential impact of fighting fires if things go wrong. Like if this goes well, it is the value and the value that I will be adding to the project. Is it enough? Like is it worth the trouble if considering that it might fail? So think about those things. I think calculated risks are a great way to add value to your project and also set yourself apart from the competition. Break away from your comfort zone. I like calculated risks. I think that's something that we should get used to doing whenever possible, right? You always have a plan B, no matter how solid your strategy might seem, it can always go downhill. Always keep a card up your sleeve. What if someone calls in sick? What if you're staying late working on something and someone falls asleep or whatever, or if you're having to do a business trip and last minute they cannot make it. Whatever, right? I'm just talking about people right now, but in anything, keep a plan B all the time. Stay in touch with industry gurus. Know a few names in the industry. Build relationships with people that might bail you out of a difficult situation at work, and and also always be ready to reciprocate. Like, you know, to be grateful as well. And don't keep a relationship just because you might need them at a later time. Also try to be surrounded by good people. That's important as well. And next one is act and make decisions. Trust yourself and think quick. Do not be afraid of mistakes and always own your decisions. So be unapologetic of the fact that you're a decision maker, that you take decisions. But you know, sometimes you will have to apologize for the consequences of those decisions. That's expected. But don't apologize for taking decisions. So sometimes you have to do it, and you have to be empowered, and your company has to empower you to take those decisions from time to time. And let's move on to the benefits of resourcefulness as a consultant. Being resourceful allows you to respond better to stress. This improves your emotional intelligence as well as your credibility with clients and colleagues. And as a resourceful individual, you will find it easier to keep a positive mindset, because after all, you know that you will have a solution for every problem. Positive mindset at the same time has a favorable impact on your attitude, which translates in much better work relationships. Those are the benefits of being resourceful. Let's move on to the next one, which is commitment. We talk about effective communication. We talk about being resourceful. And then the third one is commitment. Let's say, let's hear a quote from that I found about commitment. It says, there's a difference between interest and commitment. When you're interested in doing something, you do it only when it's convenient. When you're committed to something, you accept no excuses, only results. So, and I'd like to tell you a few definitions about commitment. Just commitment is the willingness to give your time and energy to something that you believe in. Passion is closely tied together with commitment. Passion and commitment are not needed to become good at doing something, but they are, however, essential if you plan on becoming the best. This is something that I believe as well. You can be good enough doing something, even if you're passionate or committed to it, but if you're planning to be great, like you're planning to be the best, you have to have passion and commitment. There's no way around that. Fortunately for us IT people, it's very, very easy to be passionate about what we do. Most of us are in this because we like it. So that's a good thing. How to achieve commitment. Again, be customer oriented. You must achieve a level of engagement with every customer you work. If you put the customer first, the commitment is useless, really. So you have to act as an advocate for the customer, pretty much. Next one is honor your word. Do what you said that you were going to do when you said you were going to do it. And this one seems like a dead giveaway, right? But it is grossly overlooked often. Even I struggle with this. I think we all do, but I think we're getting there, right? We have to be getting there. And I like to point out that there's a difference between honoring your word and fulfilling, expectations. Sometimes they go together. Sometimes, it doesn't depend on you to fulfill expectations. Just to give you an example, last week we deployed or released, we deployed into production, right? We did a production release, and we finished on time. It was UAT, it was approved, it was working great. We deployed. In a few hours, there were some users complaining, we're blocked, we can't do our work. We took a look, there weren't any bugs, there weren't any issues with the system. The system was doing exactly what they expected, or the indication that we were given, but some users weren't expecting that. So we weren't fulfilling their expectations, but we honor our word. We deliver on time. We deliver what we said we were gonna deliver. It was out of our hands that they weren't able to fulfill some expectations. So think about that. I mean, it's sometimes most of the times is it goes, you know, along the things are in parallel, but sometimes it doesn't depend on you. So there's a difference between honoring your word and fulfilling expectations. Hopefully you can do both at all times, but it's not always possible. So you find new sources of motivation. So think of the benefits of the work you perform, for example, for yourself and the stakeholders, and always look at the big picture of things. Like, you know, my own experience when I worked on the IBM integration, I think it was a very difficult time in my life. It was very demanding. It wasn't easy, and I wasn't happy when when everything happened. But thinking back, it was a great experience. Was something to put on my resume, I think. So always think of the big picture and find your motivation in that. If you can find motivation, build discipline. So discipline is what keeps you going. Discipline is what you have to do, and motivation is why you do it. But sometimes you can't really find why you're doing something, right? And it's normal. We're humans, right? So you can't always be motivated, but you always have to have discipline. So, you know, the next one is, if you say no to something else, be prepared to say yes to something else. I'm sorry, if you say no to something, be prepared to say yes to something else. This is, you know, everything in our lives is a negotiation. Even marriage is, you know, when we're married, it's a negotiation every single day, right? And people who approach negotiations with a positive attitude, they tend to perform better. If you have to learn to negotiate, sometimes meet people halfway and never act defensively. You know, everyone is looking at their interests, and there might be high stakes, but you have to, you know, keep your cool. And remember that if we say no to everything, the customer will find someone who will say yes. So sometimes we have to keep that in consideration. And let's find a way also to become a stakeholder. Think of the phrase being judge and jury. Sometimes this phrase is used in a negative connotation, but in this particular situation can benefit the outcome of a project. So for example, try to stop depending on using the backend to solve things. Like, think of how you can solve those problems using the programmatic solutions that you built. An example that we use a mapping tool that we use, right? And we're mapping stuff manually for people, but then we build this tool and we try to use it so we can feel how the user feels, right? And if we become stakeholders, we're committed, right? We're actually you know, using the technology that we built, and that actually increases commitment. So what are the benefits of commitment as a consultant? Commitment is the foundation of trust. You have people count. You need to have people know that they can count on you, honoring your word, and that is the basis for successful business relationships. And when we make a commitment, we exercise our creative thinking, because we need to find a way to deliver what we promise, right? That is another benefit. Also, commitment and passion are contagious. It is easier to manage a committed team. And it is a lot more, you know, a lot easier to deal with committed clients. As a result, one can say that commitment makes your job easier. So that's for commitment, and I think it's just as important as effective communication and resourcefulness. Commitment is also a great part of being a consultant. But that is the third one, and we're going on to the next one, which is the last one, which is accountability. So I want to make a pause here. Does anyone have questions, any comments? Do I need to slow down? Nothing?
All good, JC?
Yep. Okay, cool. Thank you, Javi. The next one is accountability. This is the last one. So we have effective communication, resourcefulness, commitment, and accountability. Accountability, let's take a look at a quote that I found. This is to be accountable. To be accountable means that we are willing to be responsible to another person for our behavior and actions. And it implies a level of submission to another's opinions and viewpoints. And I chose this quote for a reason. That what it says about submission, it talks or it goes in line with being humble, and I think you have to have some level of humbleness. I think that's a word, to be accountable, to gain accountability. So let's take a look at some definitions. Accountability is the obligation or willingness to accept responsibility of, or account for one's actions or decisions. That's pretty straightforward, can really put it easier. Accountability is actually a very precious stone in the business world. It is harder to find than you can imagine. You really can grow, you really can become better as a professional without accountability. Better at anything, really. Well, maybe at making excuses. You can become better at making excuses when you're not accountable. But other than that, really, I can't think of anything else. So, and accountability also doesn't guarantee you get the result that you want. It means that you've acted in integrity with your choices and actions, and you can stand behind them because they're congruent with what is important to you. This is actually a great phrase. I don't remember where I took it from, but I think I like it a lot. And it's very important. I really can't stress this enough. So let's go into how do you achieve accountability? Well, the first thing is, I think it's obvious, don't make excuses. In the moment, blame is a waste of time and energy. Really, sorry. There's going to be a time to do a root cause analysis or whatever, but when something happens, trying to find someone to blame, that's just a waste. Don't waste time and energy in that, really, at that point. Also manage expectations. Vagueness is accountability's nemesis. Always be clear about what needs to be done and when. Think carefully and realistically about a project and give give an answer that others can rely on. But first of all, think very carefully on things. Negative emotions derail productivity. Just try to stay in control of your feelings. Don't let a bad day get in the way of accomplishing what's needed. Don't take things personal. I can talk to this, on my experience at Global Resale. There are, there are always bad days, but I can assure that there are ways to deal with a difficult stakeholder. Try to stay on top of this. Reach out. Do whatever you need to do. We're here to help. The rest of the team is here to help, but this happens. So try to keep your negative emotions at bay. How to achieve accountability? We're still, it's a continuation. Actively seeking welcome feedback. Get an accountability partner. I found this online. I thought it was interesting. I didn't dig deeper a lot in this because I didn't have a lot of time, but if you want to browse that subject, an accountability partner, I think it's an interesting thing. Or you can also work with your mentor, right? We have a mentor program, so that's also interesting. That's a good option to keep being accountable. So work with them. Try to see things from a different perspective. It doesn't have to be your mentor. You can also be your colleague, and they can give you, their own opinions on things. Learn time management. So keeping control of the tasks and time you expect to dedicate to them is a great way to become accountable. And own your actions. Be unapologetic for the actions and decisions that you make, but also be prepared to politely and gladly walk people through your thought process. Again, this goes back to, remember, we talk about this in resourcefulness. Make decisions. be a man of action, you know, own your actions, and don't regret them, but maybe you will have to explain them and to someone else, and don't take things personal. Be polite, lightly take them through your thought process. They maybe just want to understand things. This is something that I struggle with a lot, so it's an advice for me as well, but I think it's important to keep in mind. And the benefits of accountability as a consultant. So accountability as well as commitment increase your dedication to complete your goals. Um, so in every position, in every company, it's all about reaching your goals. You know, uh, I can't think of anything, any position on which, you know, you're not goal oriented. You're not always dedicating your time to reaching a goal that you have. So that's one benefit. There's another one, which is it also helps you build self-control. As you know, you will have to answer for your choices and actions. This is a great one, and I like this a lot. Self-control, that goes back to emotional intelligence, which is the ability to separate what you feel from the facts and the situation around you. So this is a great one. Again, this is something that I personally have to that I have in my, you know, in my backlog, if you will, of things to work on. Accountability fosters professional growth. It is an essential trait that most companies look for when appointing an individual to a key position. So it's like many, you know, well, many of the skills that we cover, you might be able to find a way of replacing them somehow. I don't know, or compensating them, more than replacing them, compensating for some of the skills that you might not be very good at. But a lack of accountability, I really can't think of a way on which you could, you know, compensate for lack of accountability. It will be very difficult for me to work with someone that's not accountable of things. So that's a thought that I have, and I think it's important as well for us to understand that accountability is crucial as a consultant and as a colleague, as a consultant for a client, as a manager in general. So I got to the end of the presentation. So I want to share some conclusions with you. The first one is, what sets a software consultant apart from a software developer? So a software consultant looks at technology from a business perspective. They offer technical advice based on experience as well as best practices. This is how they help clients to make better decisions. So I know we're passionate about technology. I know we're all about technology, but when you're a software consultant, you have to think as a client. You have to be able to understand their pain points and how the technology will help them boost their business. Technology is just a means to get there, right? So that is important, and that's something that will set you apart from software developer and make you transition you into a software consultant. Due to this, a software consultant is expected to learn the ins and outs of a business in a very short period of time. Client engagements often demand quick results. Again, go back to putting the customer at first, in the first place. Really, I can't stress this enough. I think this slide is very important, and it should be at the center of the presentation, maybe. We should be always looking at the problems from the perspective of the client and thinking, how are we going to resolve this to their satisfaction? Not something that looks good enough for us, but that satisfies the customer needs. So next one is, it's not about being a genius, and I'm going to end up with this. There are in the industry geniuses of such caliber. I think we have a few at Simpet, to be honest, that will succeed purely based on their technical accomplishment, regardless of any lacks that they could have in other areas, like maybe lack of communication skills, lack of people skills, even some of these geniuses that you've read in the books, they sometimes don't even pay attention to their personal hygiene, right? Like they're purely dedicated to technical accomplishment, and that is okay. I mean, they have a really high IQ and they will succeed regardless of any other lacks. But for most of us, however, the career success is going to be determined as much by our non-technical skills as our technical knowledge and abilities. I think it's a 50-50, as high as that. And I really think so. So think of that when you're scheduling, you know, maybe time to improve yourself. And don't stop doing the technical training. We have the Microsoft training and a lot of other resources, but also dedicate some time to grow your soft skills, to become better, and think about what you would like to achieve in the next year or so. Try to, you know, set some time apart to improve your interpersonal skills. I can assure you that it will go a long way, and these skills are very appreciated in the industry that we serve. So I think that is what I have. Well, my mouth is dry. I don't know if you guys have any questions, something, any comments. I'd like to hear from you for sure.
It was very interesting, JC. Just wondering if, and probably this is material for another talk, but wondering if you have experience dealing with toxic customers or, you know, that sort of problems on the work.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I mean, I think we all do. And I do have some experience. Might be a good topic for another learning session. I agree with you, Javi. It's a full topic by itself. But one thing that I can tell you, just you know, pretty quick and based on what we saw, is don't take things personal, and always approach negotiations with a positive attitude. And this is hard to do. It's a lot. It's easier said than done. It's for sure. I'm telling you this, you know, gladly sitting in at home, giving a presentation to my teammates. When you're under fire, it's a lot more difficult. But I think that if you take the time to meditate on these things before going into a call or meeting someone, I think that is possible. It is possible. It takes time, but you can always gain self-control. And goes back to the accountability. Think that you will have to own the decisions that you made, and you will have to own the consequences if you say. So always think of that when going into a difficult meeting. That helps me out, actually. That I will have to own everything that I do during that time, and that helps me kind of calm down and be a lot more polite when approaching the situations.
Thanks, JC.
Sure. Anyone else? Okay. So, Paulina, I don't know if you want to wrap this up. I think that's all I have. And you know,
sure. Okay, thank you, JC, for sharing this information. I think it's very useful for all of us. And well, guys, thank you all for joining. I just wanted to let you know we're going to have next Wednesday another virtual learning session. It will be by Scott, and he'll talk about how Simpat's sales and marketing are going right now, the update, and yes, more like a sales perspective. So I'm going to send you the invite today, so you have it in. I mean, it's going to be always the same link, same password, and so yes, thank you all, everyone, for joining.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
JC.
Thank
Good job,
you.
JC.
Thank you.
Thanks, JC.
Thanks, JC.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
You too. Bye.